How dare you? You worthless little pest. How dare you ruin my dress? I hate you. You are so annoying. Elena Voss's voice ripped through the night like a blade, sharp enough to silence every breath around her. Guests froze mid-conversation, champagne flutes trembling in midair. Theo, tiny, shaking, humming softly the way he always did when afraid, lifted his hands to cover his ears. Elena didn't stop. You should learn your lesson now. Without hesitation, without a second of mercy, she tilted the pitcher she held high above her head, its red warning label glowing under the floodlights. Citric acid pool cleaner, corrosive. Ma'am, please no, Sophia screamed, her voice cracking so violently it echoed off the marble columns. Ma, please stop. That's my only son. But Elena had already moved. The acid flew. A shimmering arc of liquid cut through the air. Bright, deadly, unstoppable. No, no. Sophia lunged forward, but she wasn't fast enough. The moment the liquid touched Theo's skin, he shrieked. A sound so raw, so primal, it shattered the music and stabbed straight into every heart present. Guests dropped their champagne glasses. Crystals shattered across the polished stone. The violinists froze mid-bow, horror crawling across their faces. Theo collapsed, his body twisting on the grass, hands clawing at the burning sensation, searing across his arms and cheek. His humming, always gentle, soft, turned into desperate choking cries. Sophia fell to her knees beside him, shaking uncontrollably. My baby, Theo, look at me. Please look at me. Guests gasped. Some covered their mouths. Others backed away, refusing to be associated with the scandal they sensed was coming. And it all started moments earlier when the Voss estate garden party glimmered under golden chandeliers suspended from glass canopies. Violin strings floated through the warm Miami air. Elite guests from tech, finance, and real estate mingled beneath towering hedges trimmed by the city's best landscapers. It was Damien Voss's most important night, the night he hoped to close the biggest investment deal of his entire career. Every detail had been perfected. Imported orchids, marble ice sculptures, the $18,000 a bottle champagne, and through the controlled luxury, servers glided like shadows. Sophia, quiet, hardworking, unnoticed, smiled faintly for the first time in months. Her autistic 10-year-old son, Theo, had finally come home after a long therapy program in Orlando. She begged the security team for permission to let him visit just for an hour. He loved lights. He loved music. And tonight, she just wanted him near her. He had arrived only 10 minutes earlier, humming his soft little tune as he crouched beside Luna, the Voss family golden retriever. Several guests even smiled at him, thinking he was sweet. But then Elena Voss saw him. Her face twisted instantly, disgust curling her lip the way it always did when Theo was in view. Her step sharpened, her breathing quickened. A storm started behind her eyes. Not tonight, she hissed. Not this embarrassment. Not at my event. She stormed forward. Her hand shot toward the refreshment table, grabbing the heavy pitcher marked corrosive in oversized red letters. Keep that creature away from my party. Sophia's head jerked up. Theo flinched. The guests stared. Sophia ran too late. Elena threw the acid at the boy. Theo collapsed, screaming. Guests dropped their glasses. The garden descended into horror. Sophia threw herself over her son, shielding his small, shaking body with her own, as if she could take the burn for him. Her hands trembled violently as she cupped his face. My only child, God, why? What have I done to deserve this? She screamed, voice cracked and splintered by panic. Theo writhed beneath her, his cries slicing through the garden. His skin reddened, bubbled, blistering in patches where the corrosive liquid touched him. His breath came in sharp, terrified gasps. The humming that once calmed him now replaced by raw agony. The crowd recoiled in horror. Oh my God, her son. Someone called 911. Is that acid? Is that actual acid? Phones shot up instantly. Recordings began. Wine glasses slipped from shaking fingers and shattered across the marble pathway. The quartet froze mid-note, bows suspended in the air, unable to continue the song that moments earlier carried the illusion of elegance. Sophia's screams grew louder. He's all I have. He's all I have in this world. Somebody help him. Then a voice detonated through the estate like thunder. Elena, Everyone turned. Billionaire Damien Voss didn't walk toward the scene. He charged. His tailored charcoal suit ripped slightly at the seam from how violently his stride shifted. His face was a combination of shock, heartbreak, and an anger no one had ever seen from the famously composed CEO. His investors froze. His guests backed away. A few whispered his name, as though afraid he might explode. Damien dropped to his knees beside Sophia, hands hovering over the burning patches on Theo's skin, but too terrified to touch. His eyes glistened, not with tears yet, but with a furious disbelief. Then he lifted his face to the woman who did this. "You threw acid at a child," he roared. Elena Voss didn't flinch. Instead, she folded her arms. Perfect posture, perfect hair, perfect disdain. "He touched my dress," she snapped. "I defended myself." The garden gasped in unison, a wave of shock so strong the flowers themselves seemed to recoil. Sophia choked on her own breath. What kind of monster says that? He's 10. He's autistic. He didn't do anything to you. A man in a navy suit, one of the lead investors, whispered under his breath. Is she insane? Another whispered to his partner. We cannot be associated with this. Elena scoffed. Please. This wouldn't have happened if staff kept their little creatures under control. Damien's face darkened. Elena, he said slowly, voice trembling with a rage that frightened even the guards standing by. You attacked a child. A child under my roof. My responsibility. My household. Do you even understand what you've done? Elena gestured toward Theo, dismissive. He's overreacting. It's not that serious. He brushed my gown. It was disrespectful. I handled it. Handled it. That phrase echoed through the estate like poison. Then, without warning, the massive LED screen mounted behind the stage flickered to life. A collective gasp ripped through the crowd. A drone hired to capture cinematic footage of a party had recorded everything. It replayed the moment Theo quietly petted the golden retriever. It replayed him stepping half a foot too close to the walkway. It replayed Elena seeing him. It replayed the picture, the throw, the scream. Theo had never touched her. He barely touched the dog. A woman in a shimmering gown whispered, Good God. The investors looked at each other, horrified. Damien felt something inside him crack. The truth was now public and irreversible. Before I tell you the truth about why this moment broke an empire, take a second to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you are watching for the first time, because what happens next will leave you trembling. The garden was no longer a party. It was a crime scene with chandeliers. Paramedics swarmed around Theo. Security stood frozen. Guests whispered behind trembling hands. And through the soft hum of chaos, the first crack in Damien Voss's empire formed. The lead investor, Richard Langford, founder of Langford Ventures, the man whose signature alone would secure half of Damien's $2 billion expansion, leaned toward his colleague with a face drained of all color. This is barbaric, he whispered, practically choking on the words. His partner, a tall man with silver temples, shook his head slowly. We cannot sign with a man whose wife behaves like this, he murmured. Imagine the headlines. Imagine the scrutiny. Their wives, clasping their diamond necklaces, nodded grimly. The whispers traveled like wildfire through the elite cluster of investors, CFOs, hedge fund directors, insurance magnates, Wall Street titans. The type of men who could speak one sentence and alter financial markets. The type of guests Damien had fought for years to gather under one roof and now watched slipping through his fingers like dust. One by one their expressions hardened. One by one, their bodies stiffened. One by one they stood. No dramatic announcement, no speech, no courtesy smile, just businessmen quietly rising from their gold-trimmed chairs, adjusting their cuffs, picking up their polished suit jackets, and walking out of the Voss estate with cold, disappointed finality. Every step felt like a hammer against Damien's chest. Thud, thud, thud. He stood there frozen, hands trembling slightly as he stared at the departing men who had once praised his vision. This deal was supposed to be the cornerstone of Voss Global, the project that would secure legacy, generational wealth, partnerships across continents. Now it unraveled in seconds, not because of competition or failure or market collapse, but because of his wife. Elena finally noticed the movement behind her. She turned, frowning as she watched investor after investor abandon the party. For the first time, Her confidence flickered. Her eyes widened, confusion clinging to her flawless mascara. "What? Where are they going?" she demanded, but no one answered. She spun back toward Damien, desperation starting to crack the icy surface of her voice. "Damien, why are they leaving? Someone needs to stop them." But Damien didn't move. His throat bobbed. His eyes were pinned on the exit gate where the final investor, the final hope, disappeared into a waiting black SUV. His $2 billion deal was gone. His reputation was bleeding out in front of him. His entire life's work, the empire he built from a tiny garage startup to a global powerhouse, was slipping away because of the woman standing 10 feet from him. Sophia sobbed behind him, clutching Theo's hand as paramedics secured an oxygen mask. The sound tore at Damien's soul, each cry reminding him of what had been taken from an innocent child. Elena crossed her arms again, though her voice wavered. "Oh, please," she scoffed. "If they can't take honesty, we don't need them." Her words hit the crowd like a grenade. A woman near the dessert table gasped. A man muttered, "Is she insane?" Even the security guards exchanged horrified glances. "Honesty?" She called acid on a child. "Honesty?" Damien's breath hitched. A deep, heavy rise and fall of his chest. A warning sign of a storm about to erupt. His hands curled into fists at his sides, his knuckles turning white. He wasn't just angry, he was breaking, and everyone felt it. The entire crowd recoiled, stepping back from Elena as though she were radioactive. The woman whose cruelty had just detonated an empire. The flashing red lights from the emergency kits lit the garden like a battlefield. Paramedics sprinted across the lawn, their boots sinking into the manicured grass as they reached Theo's trembling body. "Child, stay with me," one paramedic murmured, lifting him carefully. Theo cried out, arms reaching blindly toward Sophia. "Mama! Mama!" Hearing that broke every soul watching. Sophia collapsed beside the stretcher, her knees buckling beneath her. Her whole body shook as she grabbed Theo's hand. "What have I done? My only son. Please God, don't take him." She sobbed, barely forming the words as tears streamed down her face. Damien Voss knelt beside her, his voice gentler than anyone had ever heard it. "Sophia, he'll get help. I promise. I won't let anything happen to him." His hand hovered near her shoulder, trembling with guilt. Then his expression shifted. He rose to his full height, CEO posture. Fury carved into every line of his face and turned toward Elena. "Security," he commanded, voice echoing through the estate. "Take my wife inside until the police arrive." Gasps rippled through the crowd. 3 security guards stepped forward, their earpieces crackling as they advanced. Their expressions were grim. They knew exactly what Damien meant. Elena was no longer the lady of the house. She was the assailant. Elena's eyes widened. "What? Damien? Damien? What are you doing?" She backed up, heels scraping the marble. "Don't touch me. Do you know who I am?" But the guards didn't stop. Panic flickered across her face. Then she ran. Her heels clattered across the tiles. Guests screamed and jumped aside as she shoved past them, knocking over champagne towers and sending crystals smashing to the ground. "Stop her!" someone yelled. The guards took off after her, 3 large men thundering through the garden, dodging overturned chairs and broken glass. They chased her past the dessert tables, past the hedge maze, and down the marble staircase that led toward the lower lawn. Elena's dress tore at the hem as she ran. She stumbled, regained her pace, breathing hard as she darted behind the catering tents. But she wasn't fast enough. Just as she reached the side gate, blue and red lights splashed across the driveway. Police sirens wailed through the estate. The guards caught her by the arms right as the officers emerged from their cruisers. "Let go of me!" Elena screamed, thrashing wildly. "I am Elena Voss. You can't touch me. You can't arrest me. I'm a Voss." Her voice cracked, hysteria blending with rage. 2 officers approached, calm but firm. They pulled out handcuffs as she twisted and kicked. "No," one officer said evenly, securing her wrists behind her back, locking the cuffs with a metallic click. "Tonight," he continued, looking her directly in the eyes, "you're a suspect." The words echoed across the estate as every guest watched in stunned silence. Elena Voss, Billionaire's wife, socialite, queen of the estate, was dragged away in handcuffs. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and the sirens wailed as Theo was rushed toward Miami General. The flashing lights streaked across the estate like red tears. Sophia watched helplessly, her hands reaching out as the vehicle disappeared through the gates. She collapsed against the paramedic rail, shaking, whispering her son's name as though the sound alone could keep him alive. As the estate fell into stunned silence, the narrator's voice dipped low and heavy to understand why this night changed everything. You must know where Sophia's story really began. The scene dissolved into a memory 8 years earlier, when life had already broken her once. Sophia Ramirez arrived at the Voss estate not as the strong, fire-willed woman she was tonight, but as a grieving widow standing on the brink of collapse. Her husband Miguel had died in a trucking accident that ripped away both her best friend and their only source of financial stability. She had stared at the hospital bill statements until the numbers blurred and the page warped beneath her tears. Then a second blow struck. Theo, 2 years old and barely speaking, was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. The therapist gently explained the importance of early intervention, structure, routine, and patience. All things Sophia desperately wanted to give him, but couldn't afford. She needed a steady job. She needed health insurance. She needed a lifeline before she lost everything all over again. So, when she heard the Voss family was hiring a live-in maid, she swallowed her pride and applied. She didn't know she was walking into a gilded nightmare. Elena Voss hated Theo from the moment she first saw him. A small boy clutching a stuffed dinosaur, humming his soft, rhythmic tune to calm himself. Elena's perfectly sculpted face twisted in disgust. Does he have to make that noise? She snapped to the butler. It's disturbing. Theo wasn't touched by her words. He simply rocked slightly on his feet, humming louder. That's even worse, Elena muttered. I don't want him wandering around. He ruins the aesthetic of my home. From that day forward, every sound Theo made, every hum, every footstep, every gentle movement irritated Elena down to her bones. He hummed while he colored. He hummed while he stacked blocks. He hummed when nervous. He hummed when overstimulated. And to Elena, each hum was an insult. Sophia tried to shield him, placing him in the far corners of the estate during her cleaning shifts, giving him headphones when she could afford them, whispering, "Just stay quiet, baby. Mommy's working. Please stay quiet." But even then, Elena found reasons to attack. Why is he wandering the hall? Keep him out of sight. He bumped into my chair. Control him. His hands are dirty. Disinfect everything he touched. Your child is embarrassing. Do your job. The insults wormed into Sophia's spirit like bruises no one could see. But she didn't leave. She couldn't leave. Theo's therapy bills were rising. Rent was rising. Groceries were rising. Her grief was rising. She promised herself just one more week, one more paycheck, one more month. Damien Voss rarely noticed any of this. He came home late, left early, and spent most days in meetings, building Voss Global into a multi-billion-dollar powerhouse. He greeted staff with polite nods, asked about inventory, reviewed security reports, but he never saw the quiet cruelty simmering behind his wife's perfect smile. To Sophia, the mansion was gold on the outside and rot on the inside. But in her heart, she held on to hope, a tiny spark that told her someday, somehow, she and Theo would escape this place and start fresh. She never imagined that escape would arrive through acid and tragedy. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead as the automatic doors of Miami General slid shut behind the paramedics. The cold air of the emergency wing hit Sophia's skin like ice. She stumbled after the stretcher, but a nurse gently stopped her, guiding her toward a padded bench in the hallway. In the present again, the narrator's voice folded quietly around the scene. Sophia sank onto the bench, drenched in tears, her whole body trembling. Her palms were still burning from where she touched Theo's reddened skin. She pressed them together tightly, whispering prayers so quickly, her words tangled into one another. Please, God, please don't take him. He's my only baby. You've already taken my husband. Please, not my child, too. Her voice cracked with every breath. People passing through the hallway slowed, some placing hands over their hearts, unable to look away from a mother breaking apart right in front of them. Behind the double doors, doctors and nurses surrounded Theo. The muffled chaos inside the trauma room rattled Sophia's nerves. Urgent footsteps, Quick orders, machines beeping in rapid succession. She could hear the sound of suction equipment, the ripping of medical tape, a nurse calling for saline. Every noise made her flinch. She lifted her eyes to the ceiling. Her tears rolled down her jawline and onto her uniform collar. Lord, please. I can't live without him. The hallway stretched endlessly as if time itself had paused to watch her suffer. Then footsteps. Slow, heavy, hesitant. Damien Voss appeared at the end of the corridor. But not the Damien Voss the world knew, not the billionaire CEO with perfect posture, immaculate suits, and unshakable confidence. This Damien looked pale, almost ghost-like. His tie hung loose. His hair was disheveled from running his hands through it in shock. There were smudges of dirt on his jacket from kneeling beside Theo earlier. He wasn't a man in control anymore. He looked like a man who'd lost everything. He approached Sophia cautiously, as though he feared she might shatter if he moved too quickly. She didn't even look up at first. When she finally did, her eyes were swollen, desperate, accusing and pleading all at once. Damien didn't speak immediately. He lowered himself onto the bench beside her. Not as her employer, not as a billionaire, not as the man whose wife had just been arrested, but as a broken human being. His voice cracked when he finally whispered, "Sophia, I failed you." She inhaled sharply as if the admission itself cut her. "I failed your son," he continued, his throat tightening. "I didn't know. God forgive me. I didn't know she was capable of this." Sophia folded into herself and sobbed harder, burying her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook uncontrollably. "He's all I have, sir. My only baby." Damien's eyes glossed with tears he fought to contain. He reached out, but hesitated, unsure whether he had the right to comfort her. Instead, he lowered his gaze to the sterilized tile floor, clenching and unclenching his fists in self-loathing. "I should have seen it," he whispered. "I should have noticed how she treated him. How she treated you. I let this happen under my own roof." Silence filled the hallway again, thick and suffocating. Machines beeped rhythmically behind the trauma doors. Sophia sniffed, wiping her cheek with the back of her trembling hand, but said nothing. Damien finally gathered the courage to look directly at her. "I swear on everything I built," he said, voice low and steady despite the tears lining his lashes. "He will live, and I will make this right." He didn't blink. He didn't break. He meant every single word. It took weeks, weeks of sleepless nights, weeks of prayers whispered into hospital pillows, weeks of watching machines breathe for her son. But Theo survived. The first time he opened his eyes, the room erupted with quiet sobs. His burns, once raw and angry, had begun to heal beneath delicate layers of grafts. His cheek still bore the memory of the attack, but the doctors assured Sophia the scars would fade with time. And when he smiled, weak, crooked, but there, Sophia nearly collapsed with relief. She pressed her forehead to his and whispered, "Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Thank you." She clung to every nurse, every doctor, thanking them for saving the only piece of her heart left in the world. But outside the calm of Theo's recovery room, a storm was tearing through the city. Miami exploded. The moment the footage of Elena throwing the acid hit the news, the story went everywhere. Morning talk shows, late-night commentary, national headlines. It was replayed frame by frame. Theo's quiet humming, Victoria's scream, the picture, the throw, the collapse. Every second was burned into the American conscience. Hashtags trended. People marched. Protesters stood outside the courthouse with signs reading "Justice for Theo" and "Protect our children." Celebrities posted statements condemning Elena Voss. Advocacy groups demanded accountability. Mothers cried on live TV, saying what happened to Theo could have happened to their own autistic children. Elena became the nation's villain, and now she had to face the law. The morning of her arraignment, the courthouse was a sea of reporters. Cameras flashed so violently it looked like lightning striking pavement. Protesters chanted her name with fury, demanding a sentence that matched her cruelty. Elena emerged from the police van wearing an orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed, hair messy, mascara smeared down her cheek. Gone was the glamour. Gone was the perfection. Gone was the untouchable billionaire wife. Now she was simply the defendant. Inside the courtroom, the list of charges was read aloud. Aggravated assault, child endangerment, use of a harmful corrosive substance. Each charge echoed off the wooden panels like the pounding of a gavel against her future. Her attorney whispered urgently, but Elena wasn't listening. She stared ahead, jaw clenched, eyes darting around the room, searching for someone who still believed in her, someone who still cared, but no one did. When the judge denied bail, the courtroom erupted. Reporters leapt from their seats. Protesters outside screamed in triumph as the news hit their phones. Even the gallery murmured, shocked that a woman once considered social royalty was now being held like a dangerous criminal. As officers escorted Elena down the courthouse steps, microphones were shoved toward her, cameras blinding her. "Mrs. Voss, do you have anything to say? Why did you attack the child? What message do you want to send?" Elena snapped. "I am the victim," she screamed, voice cracking, her face twisted with desperation. "I am the victim." But the crowd only roared louder. No one believed her anymore. The courtroom was overflowing, so full that people pressed against the back wall, clutching handbags and coats to their chests. Reporters squeezed into every corner. Cameras clicked. The tension in the air felt heavy enough to crush bone. Sophia sat in the front row, Theo's small hand wrapped inside hers. Even the slightest sound made her flinch. She kept her free hand on his shoulder, rubbing slowly to calm him. Theo looked straight ahead, his expression blank but watchful, clinging to the rhythmic comfort of her touch. Across the room, Elena Voss stood at the defense table, a shell of the woman she once was. Her once perfect hair hung in tangled, unwashed curls. Her designer makeup had been replaced by streaks of smeared mascara. The orange jumpsuit clung awkwardly to her frame, exposing how drastically she had unraveled. The courtroom doors opened. Damien Voss entered. He didn't sit beside her. He didn't greet her. He didn't even glance her way at first. He took a seat on the opposite side of the room, next to the prosecution's witnesses. A ripple of murmurs traveled through the crowd. Elena's lips parted, shocked. She looked at him as though her anchor had suddenly been cut loose. The bailiff struck the floor with a wooden staff. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Rivera." Everyone stood. Judge Rivera, a stern woman with dark hair pulled tight and unblinking focus, took her seat. "You may be seated." Papers shuffled. Short breaths echoed in the quiet room. Elena twisted her cuffed hands together, desperate and trembling. The judge scanned the file in front of her, then lifted her gaze to the defendant. "Elena Voss," she began, her voice carrying through the room like a steel blade. "You stand charged with aggravated assault, child endangerment, and the unlawful use of a harmful corrosive substance." Sophia held her breath. Theo pressed closer to her side. "The court has reviewed the evidence extensively." Judge Rivera continued, "We have watched the footage. We have heard the testimonies, and we have considered every argument presented by both legal teams." Elena swallowed hard. Her eyes darted toward Damien again, silently, begging him to stand up for her, to intervene, to save her. He didn't move. The judge lifted the verdict form. The room went completely silent. In the matter of the state versus Elena Voss, the jury finds the defendant a heartbeat. Another, a third, guilty on all charges. The words exploded through the courtroom. Sophia let out a trembling exhale, tears filling her eyes. Theo tensed but remained quiet. Elena collapsed. She dropped to her knees, screaming so wildly that two officers had to rush to her side to steady her. "No, no. Damien, do something. Stop them. I'm your wife." Her voice cracked, raw and hysterical, echoing off the wooden walls. Damien finally stood slowly, quietly, with the weight of every painful truth behind his posture. He approached her just close enough that she could hear him, but not close enough to touch. "I loved you," he said softly, heartbreak woven through every syllable. "I begged you to change. I tried to protect our life, our family, our home." Tears gathered in his eyes, but not for her. "But you harmed a child," he continued. "A child under my roof. A child who never harmed you. And now you must face justice." Elena grabbed for him, her fingers clawing the air. Officers restrained her wrists. "Damien, please. Please don't let them take me. I didn't deserve this." But the courtroom did not move for her. The officers dragged her toward the side door. Her screams grew sharper. Her legs kicked. Her shoulders shook violently. The heavy wooden doors swung open and slammed shut behind her. Elena Voss was sentenced to prison. The courthouse steps were still buzzing with reporters when Damien slipped out the side entrance, avoiding cameras for the first time in his life. He didn't care about statements or optics or damage control. He didn't care about Voss Global or shareholders or the contracts he'd lost. He cared about one thing. One boy, one mother, one family his home had nearly destroyed. Sophia and Theo were waiting for him in a quiet room inside Miami General, a sunlit space the hospital reserved for families who needed privacy. Theo sat in a reclining chair wrapped in soft hospital blankets, his bandages visible beneath the cloth. He traced slow shapes in the air with his fingers, calming himself the way the therapist taught him. Sophia sat beside him, stroking his hair, whispering gentle reassurances between breaths. When Damien entered, he didn't come in like a billionaire. He came in like a man humbled by grief and guilt, stripped of ego, stripped of excuses. He walked straight toward them. Then he did something no one expected. Not the press, not his board, not even Sophia. He knelt. His expensive suit touched the polished floor. His hands clasped, his head lowered. "Sophia," he said softly, voice trembling. "I am truly sorry." Sophia's lips parted in surprise. She had never seen Damien Voss on his knees for anyone. "I cannot undo what she did," he continued. "No apology can erase the pain you've endured. No amount of money can erase the scars your son will carry, but I can build something that will help him and help thousands of children like him." Sophia swallowed hard, unable to speak. Theo looked up briefly, his eyes drifting between the two adults before returning to the invisible patterns he was drawing. Damien inhaled shakily, uncovering every part of his medical recovery. Surgeries, therapy, specialists. Whatever he needs for as long as he needs it. Sophia pressed a hand to her mouth, tears rising again. "And I've already arranged a new home for you both," he added. "Safe, quiet, in a good neighborhood with support services nearby. No more long commutes, no more fear, no more living under anyone's shadow." A sob escaped her. She wasn't crying from pain this time, but from relief. Damien continued, voice steadier now, carried by conviction. "I'm establishing something bigger," he said. $100 million institution for disabled and autistic children. A place for therapy, education, protection, and justice. No child like Theo will ever be harmed again because of ignorance or cruelty. Sophia blinked through her tears, stunned. "It will be called," he paused, glancing at the boy who had survived hell and come out fighting. "The Theo Voss Center for Healing and Justice." Sophia covered her face, sobbing quietly. Theo looked up, humming softly, sensing the shift, the warmth, the peace settling over the room. The city would later praise Damien Voss for taking responsibility, for stepping up where others would have stepped back, for using his power not to silence the truth, but to rebuild lives. But in this moment, none of that mattered. Sophia wiped her tears and whispered, voice trembling, "Thank you, sir. Thank you for seeing him." Months later, the world had changed. The morning sun washed the glass exterior of a brand new building, sleek, modern, rising proudly between two Miami towers. Banners fluttered, camera crews lined the sidewalks. Families gathered, some holding children, others simply drawn by the hope this place represented. The sign above the entrance gleamed. The Theo Voss Center for Healing and Justice. Reporters gathered in clusters, microphones raised, eager to capture the rebirth of a legacy. Damien Voss stepped onto the outdoor stage. Dressed simply, humility replacing the old corporate armor he once wore. Flashbulbs exploded. Applause rippled through the crowd. Hope pulsed through the air like electricity. Then, moving with a confidence they didn't have months earlier, the same investors who once abandoned him stepped forward. The lead investor, Richard Langford, extended his hand. "Damien, we saw how you handled the tragedy," he said, voice steady, respectful. "Not many men would have stood tall the way you did." Another investor nodded. "Your integrity, your courage, the way you protected that boy and took responsibility, that is the kind of leadership we invest in." A third investor lifted a folder thick with paperwork. The same deal they walked away from at the garden party. Except now it was bigger, more funding, more reach, more opportunity. Voss, he said, smiling. We want in. Damien blinked, taken aback. But instead of pride, a quiet gratitude washed over him. He accepted their handshake, sealing a partnership built on something stronger than business, built on truth, justice, and a man's willingness to transform tragedy into healing. But the real moment hadn't happened yet. He turned, and there on the ramp leading up to the stage stood Sophia. She pushed Theo's wheelchair slowly, her eyes already glassy with emotion. Theo, now wearing soft, supportive braces, beamed at the crowd. His scars had healed. His spirit had risen. The boy who once hummed in fear now hummed with joy. The audience softened, murmurs of awe spreading through the rows. Sophia reached the edge of the stage. Theo held her hand, then looked toward Damien with shy excitement. He wanted to try today, she whispered, voice trembling. Damien stepped back, giving them the full space they needed. And then with every camera capturing it, with every heart holding its breath, Theo rose from his wheelchair. He placed one foot forward, then another, supported by braces, supported by therapy, supported by a city that finally saw him. He walked. Sophia covered her mouth with both hands, tears rolling freely. She sank to her knees beside him, overwhelmed with gratitude and pride. Damien's voice broke as he leaned close and whispered, "This center exists because of you." "Because of him." Sophia nodded, tears streaming. Theo hummed, smiling brightly as the crowd rose to its feet. Applause thundered, cameras flashed. People cried openly. Justice had been served. Healing had begun. And from that day forward, the world would remember Theo, not as the boy who was harmed, but as the boy who inspired a movement. A single child had changed a billionaire. A single mother had changed a city. And a single act of love had transformed tragedy into hope for thousands. The story ends not in darkness, but in light. And now the narrator's voice closes the tale with warmth. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share it so others can experience this journey. And tell us in the comments what part touched you the most. Your engagement helps us keep creating powerful stories like this.